How many of you have ever hiked some part of the Appalachian Trail? Raise your hand. Oh, that's the majority of you. How many of you would like to hike the whole Appalachian Trail? No? So that's only for the brave ones, right? The Appalachian Trail. Oh, Josh, of course. The Appalachian Trail is almost 2,200 miles long, and usually it takes people about 5 to 7 months to hike the whole trail. Unless you have a plant powered metabolism like Scott Jurek, who's an ultra marathon runner and who set the record running the Appalachian Trail. How long do you think it took him to run the Appalachian Trail? So a little bit more. Do your math. So he was running, I'll give you some clues. He was running 50 miles a day. That's more than a marathon a day. So how many days do you think it took him? 46 days. And you can do it too, right? So are you the next one who will be setting the record running the Appalachian Trail? Okay, so what's your limit? Why don't you set the record running the Appalachian Trail? What's your limit? Is it your heart? Is it the shortness of your breath? Or is it, the muscle pain? Are your muscles too sore when you're running or even when you're walking? So how many of you would need to train more to set a record running the Appalachian Trail? So in other words, you just need to train your heart more, right? And how many of you, when you are walking or running, just get this muscle pain that's just killing and that would not allow you to even finish the trail? What's the limiting factor of the muscle pain? When we run or when we work out really hard, then the lactic acid, the lactate that's being built up in the muscles, causes oxidative stress. And the oxidative stress is causing the muscle pain. And it turns out that the lactic acid is not the only acid that's in our body. We also can influence our body's ability to cope with the lactic acid by the food that we're eating. And more specifically, researchers have compared two kinds of diet. One diet that was high in fruits and vegetables, and where the dietary acid load is very low. Most of the dietary acids come from animal foods, like meat, dairy, eggs. These are high in dietary acids. So the researchers compared two kinds of diet, one that was mainly fruits and vegetables, where the dietary acid load was low, with a diet with a lot of animal products, where the dietary acid load was high. And they found out that the performance in people who were training was 21% better on the plant-based diet with less dietary acids, because you not only don't supply so many dietary acids through your diet, you also give your body some alkalinizing foods that help your body get rid of the lactic acid that's being built up in the muscles. And if your body is able to eliminate the lactate, it gives you a great advantage. You can shorten the period of time where people are so sore that they're not able to train. So you're basically able to get use of the extra time and train even more. That's why many athletes are becoming vegan nowadays. And in fact, we will be showing the new. How many of you have already watched the new movie, The Game Changers? So that's a documentary about why so many athletes are going vegan nowadays, because it gives them a great advantage over their peers. And in fact, Rico Hill, who was supposed to have a third lecture next Sabbath, is not able to come, and we decided to show the movie next week. So please come and invite your friends. We will be also sending out an email to all church. It's a great movie. It's a documentary, and it features not only Scott Jurek, but also other vegan athletes and how much they improved once they switched to a plant-based diet. So that's one of the examples. When your dietary acid load is low, when you eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, you can increase your performance by 21% only, through switching the foods that you eat. And the dietary acid load not only influences your performance, but also your risk of type 2 diabetes. So the more animal products you're eating, the more acids you're consuming through your diet, and the higher your risk of type 2 diabetes. In practical terms, I just want to show you some numbers. The animal products are fairly high in dietary acids. So we can see some numbers around 8, 9, 11, and the highest is the Parmesan, 34. Now let's switch to the plant kingdom, and we can see that bread is still a positive, but a much lower number than the animal products. Even sugar is kind of neutral. It's more on the beneficial side. And when we look at potatoes and carrots, then we can see the negative numbers, which means that they are alkalinizing. They are helping your body get rid of the extra dietary acids. And the spinach is the champion. So eat your greens. It's also when you are sore after some physical activity, greens are the best source, not only of energy after a workout, but also in order to help your body get rid of the lactic acid that's being built up. Now, in practical terms, so we saw from the previous study that every 10 units decrease in dietary acid load leads to an increase in performance by about 5%. So what does it mean? How can we compare? We saw some numbers of some foods, but what does it mean in terms of our lunch, for example? So if you eat a ham and cheese sandwich, the dietary acid load of this meal would be almost 42 milliequivalents. And if you eat baked potatoes with carrots and spinach, the dietary acid load would be negative 23 milliequivalents, which means that the difference is more than 60 milliequivalents. So now every 10 units decrease in dietary acid load turns into 5% increase in your performance. So we have 60 as a difference. That would be 6 times 5. That's 30% increase in your performance by just switching 2 types of lunch, right? So that's how powerful the food is for your performance. And we have published a review paper that summarizes the advantages of a plant-based diet for athletes. One of the advantages is that plant-based diet promotes a leaner body mass. You not only are leaner following a plant-based diet, like your body mass index is lower, but you also have more muscle and less fat, which is a huge advantage in any sport, not only in endurance sports, but also in resistance and weight training. A plant-based diet also encourages tissue oxygenation. All our cells need oxygen. How can we bring it to the cells? First of all, the red blood cells need to be moving. And a plant-based diet improves the blood viscosity. It keeps the blood moving faster. You know it from your personal experience. If you eat a heavy meal that's fatty, you feel completely sluggish, right? You feel like taking a nap. That's because your blood is also sluggish. The red blood cells are like glued together. They're hardly ever moving. The whole blood is sluggish. That's why you feel sluggish. While if you eat some salad, some nice lunch that Michelle and Mindy and Shelly and Susan prepared for us today, you provided the rice cooker. Then you feel a lot lighter. But it's not only about how you feel, it's literally what happens in each cell of your body. The cells are able to extract more oxygen from your blood, and it gives them more energy. And plant foods have been shown to decrease inflammation. Inflammation is the underlying cause of all the chronic diseases: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer. And it has been shown that it's mainly the animal products that are driving the inflammation. If you remove the animal products from your diet, you will automatically decrease your levels of inflammation in your body. And it's not only these chronic diseases, it's also autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease is also associated with increased inflammation. So you want to decrease the levels of inflammation in your body, and the plant foods will help you. And also, plant foods are high in carbohydrates. And many people fear carbohydrates nowadays. It's like, I cannot eat rice. Don't you know? I need to lose weight. I need to be healthy. I cannot eat rice and bread. But people don't seem to realize that carbohydrates are the main fuel, not only for our brain, but also for our muscles. So it's not the carbohydrates that we need to fear, that we need to avoid. It's more what we consume with the carbohydrates. So it's not the bread itself, it's more what you put on it. If you have your ham and cheese, that's a lot of fat that will also increase your dietary acid load. It's not the bread itself. So if you can find some healthy alternatives, what you can eat with your bread and with your rice and potatoes, you don't need to worry about carbohydrate restrictions. And how many of you have heard that a keto diet is good for you if you want to lose weight and if you want to improve your health? Well, let's look at what the keto diet can do for you compared to a high carbohydrate diet. There are a few studies that compared them head to head, crossover trials where the participants tried both. So one of them was in 16 healthy trained men and women, 16 healthy athletes. And for 4 days, they gave them these two energy matched diets. One was a low carb diet, so literally avoiding bread, potatoes, and rice, eating a lot of animal products, meat and cheese, and some vegetables. And the second diet was a high carbohydrate diet. And the main sources of carbohydrates in our diet are plant-based, right? It's the bread and the potatoes and the rice and the beans. So it was a very much plant-based diet. Now, what happened when people were following these two diets for 4 days? How did their physical performance look like? So the low carbohydrate diet decreased their peak power by 7% and decreased their mean power by 6% in only 4 days. And it decreased their endurance by 15%. Some of you may think, well, but it was not long enough. It was only 4 days. What will happen if you allow your body more time to adapt to the keto diet? Will that help? Well, that's another study in 29 elite race walkers. And this time they gave them very similar diets for 3 weeks. Again, a low carb and a high carb diet, and they had also a third regimen with the high carb diet, which was only time restricted. So it was a high carb diet in 2 different regimens. And they showed that when these elite walkers were training for the whole 3 weeks on each diet, of course, they were faster by 6.6% on the high carb diet and by 5.3% on the high carb diet that was time restricted. But the time did not improve at all on the keto diet, in spite of all the training, which means a keto diet is a clear disadvantage to your physical performance. Not only in one study, but the studies just keep confirming it. It will not give you any advantage over a high carbohydrate plant-based diet. It will only make things worse. Now, why is a keto high-fat diet so harmful for you? First of all, it increases your levels of endotoxin in your blood. When you eat a fatty meal, then there are some bacteria in your gut that will release endotoxin in the bloodstream, which will impair your metabolism and will impair how your cells are able to react to insulin that's being secreted, will increase the resistance. And high-fat diets also decrease glucose oxidation. Glucose oxidation is the main metabolic event in our cells, how we create energy. Why is glucose oxidation so important? So this is probably what you remember from biochemistry, and this is a slide that you were waiting for the whole afternoon, right? So we have 2 ways how to metabolize glucose. One of them is glycolysis with no oxygen, and we get 2 molecules of ATP, which is metabolic currency, let's say. So 2 coins, two coins of ATP. But if we are able to use the same amount of glucose in oxidative phosphorylation, then we get 34 molecules of ATP, which is a huge difference. So if a keto diet decreases your ability of oxidative phosphorylation, it shuts down your metabolism, basically. You are in a survival mode. You're not able to thrive. You're just able to barely survive. That's why you need carbohydrates to switch the oxidative phosphorylation, to get used, because our body is built this way. Our brain, our muscles, they need carbohydrates as the main source of fuel. So I just switched the coins into a flame just to give you like an analogy. The more oxidative phosphorylation, the more you're able to burn glucose in an oxidative way, the more heat you get compared with glycolysis. Now, mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. Why are they called the powerhouse of the cell? They make ATP. It's where the oxidative phosphorylation takes place. It's in the mitochondria. That's why, and I showed you the big difference in metabolism, how much energy we get if we can get it from oxidative phosphorylation. It takes place in mitochondria. While lean people have a lot of mitochondria, obese people and people with type 2 diabetes have lower counts of mitochondria. They are also smaller and dysfunctional. Now, this has major implications for insulin resistance. You know that type 2 diabetes is not caused by lack of insulin, but it's caused by decreased sensitivity to insulin, so-called insulin resistance. And Dr. Peterson from Yale University took children from patients with type 2 diabetes. They were completely healthy and they were lean. However, they were in their 30s and they already have some insulin resistance in their muscle. And in terms of their ATP, their ability to build ATP in their mitochondria, it was decreased by 30%. Now, plant-based diets provide some advantages to endurance athletes like Scott Jurek, but they also provide some advantages to resistance trainers. Patrick Baboumian is one of the strongest men in the world, and he is a complete vegan. Why? How can he sustain that? Many people think, well, in order to build your muscles, you need animal protein. Protein is a big topic. But when you look at the examples from animal kingdom, the strongest animals, like chimpanzees and elephants, they all get their protein from plants. So it's not the animal protein that would make you stronger. It's the opposite. You will impose extra burden on your metabolism. Of course, you need fuel, but you can completely have all the fuel from plant sources, and you can get all the benefits and not put so much burden on your kidneys. Now, it has been shown that the less fat in your body and the more lean mass, the better for your physical performance. Since plant-based diets have been shown to decrease your fat mass and increase your muscle mass, they provide these advantages. Western diet influences the gut microbiome and increases insulin resistance in the liver, but also in the adipose tissue, and promotes inflammation. The gut bacteria composition is able to explain about 22% of your cardiorespiratory fitness. So when you, even before you step on a treadmill or before you start running, I could tell you how your performance would look like to a large degree. Plant foods that are rich in fiber promote a healthy weight and healthy blood lipids and healthy heart through the gut bacteria composition and through the production of short-chain fatty acids in our gut. When researchers compared children living in Burkina Faso in Africa and children living in Europe, children living in Burkina Faso in Africa had higher counts of short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria in their stools. And a similar study compared adult Native Africans and African Americans. And Native Africans had more short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. And these are clearly related to the diet people are consuming. One of the short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria is called Fecalibacterium prausnitzii. It's a complicated name, but it's just a cute bacteria, and lower counts have been described in African Americans, and lower counts have also been described in type 2 diabetes. And these lower counts have been associated with insulin resistance and inflammation. So we decided to look also at the gut microbiome composition after 16 weeks on a plant-based diet, and we were tracking body weight and body composition and insulin sensitivity. We randomized people to follow either a standard American diet or to switch to a plant-based diet for 16 weeks. We had 147 participants, and the mean age was 53 years. Most of our participants were females. The mean body mass index was 33.4, and we were measuring the body composition using a DEXA scan. The participants came in the morning to our lab. We were performing some blood draws to test their insulin sensitivity, and we gave them a ubiome kit to test their gut microbiome. The physical activity remained the same in both groups. We asked them not to change their physical activity to be able to follow the changes of the diet only. The energy intake went down in both groups. Both groups were trying to lose weight, but through different strategies. So the ones who were on the standard American diet just used portion control as their main strategy, how to reduce the energy, while people who switched to a plant-based diet were eating until they were full. But the plant foods are just have lower energy density, so people were eating until they were full, but they were still consuming less energy. The macronutrient intake remained about the same in the control group, and the vegans increased their carbohydrates and decreased their fat intake. Now, on the vegan diet, people were losing about 13 pounds over the course of 16 weeks. Is it a lot or is it little? Would you take it? So this is something that we find out repeatedly. The average weight loss is about 1 pound a week once people switch to a completely plant-based diet. In fact, what do you think? What is the average weight gain in an average American in 1 year? 5 pounds? Any other guess? 15 in 1 year? 3? It's even less. It's about 1.5 pounds, and it's gained over the holidays, over Thanksgiving and Christmas. But over a few decades, you have 15 pounds and 30 pounds, and you just, keep gaining the pounds, and people don't know where it's coming from. So if you can completely reverse the trend, instead of gaining 1.5 pounds in a year, if you can lose 1 pound a week, that would be, how many weeks do we have? So how many pounds a year would it be, theoretically? It would be 52 pounds, right? Well, obviously that will stop. You will not dissolve. But anyway, I just wanted to make the point, like sometimes people just focus on the numbers and they're like anxious to lose as much weight as possible in 16 weeks. Like, why hurry? You have a few more years, and your body will know best how to stop the weight loss. You will not dissolve, and there's no hurry. You don't need to be nervous about losing the weight too quickly. In fact, it's the slower the better for the long-term sustainability. So there's no reason to hurry with weight loss. 2/3 of the weight loss were due to fat loss, and people were also losing the visceral fat that's around the inner organs. That's the metabolically most dangerous fat. Their insulin sensitivity improved, and in terms of their gut bacteria, the whole family of Bacteroidetes increased on a vegan diet, and this cute bacteria, Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, increased on the vegan diet and it decreased on the control diet. And the increase in Faecalibacterium prausnitzii was also related to the weight loss, to fat loss, and to the loss of visceral fat. So to sum up the results, a plant-based diet only for 16 weeks, which is a short period of time, resulted in major changes in gut bacteria, in an increase in the whole family of Bacteroidetes, and an increase of Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. And these changes were also related to the positive metabolic outcomes, to the weight loss and changes in body composition and insulin sensitivity. So I'd like to encourage all of you to feed your gut bacteria well, because it's the gut bacteria that will make you happy. There's the so-called gut-brain axis, where your gut bacteria also influence your brain, the performance of your brain, but also your mood. We have shown in the past that a plant-based diet also reduces the symptoms of depression. So those of you, especially in the fall and in the winter, don't you think you are more prone to being depressed when you are sun deprived? Then a plant-based diet is a good way how to improve your mood and your performance. This is Lewis Hamilton. He's the Formula One racer. He's the champion of the world, and he is vegan. And he talks about the benefits of a plant-based diet for Formula One racing. How can you use plant-based diet when you are, racing in your car? Obviously, he's getting the benefits because of the brain function. So you can improve your brain performance using a plant-based diet. So to summarize, a plant-based diet will improve the composition of your gut bacteria. It will also improve the acid-base balance because plant foods are alkalinizing in general and are less acidic. A plant-based diet will make your body leaner. It will improve your body composition, giving you more muscle and less fat. It will improve your glucose oxidation in the mitochondria. So you will get more energy for all the cells in your body. And it will also improve your brain function. And this is our team. And we have a plant-powered team. Not only do we start early in the morning, but we also need to stay late at night sometimes. And it's a pleasure working with a plant-powered team who's excited about the benefits being also manifested in the lives of others. And this is a quote from Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One champion. I was born to race and to win. And I believe that we were all born to race and to win. God has called each one of us to do different things. Each one of us is called to do something else. But with God's help, we can strive to do our best and to win the prize at the end. So thank you so much, and I'd like to take your questions. Please.
Does alkaline water help provide some balance? Yes.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Alkaline water. Have you seen the alkaline water? That's one way how people deal with the extra dietary acids they're taking in, right? So one way how to deal with it is to drink alkaline water. That will try to counterbalance all the extra acids that you're eating in your diet. Of course, it will help some, but at the same time, the easiest solution is just to swap the foods. Swap the ones that are high in dietary acids, swap them for the ones that are alkalinizing for fruits and vegetables. That would be the best solution, because it's not only about the dietary acids, it's also about the animal protein, the animal fat, about the heme iron. There are other components of the animal products that are harmful, not only the acid base ratio. But yes, the alkaline water will, reduce the dietary acid load a little bit and will help your body to alkalinize a little bit. But if you want more help, swapping the foods will do more for you.
How did the keto diet become so popular and the plant-based diet not be as popular?
Yeah, that's a great question. Why do people think that diabetes is from sugar, from eating too much carbohydrate and sugar? Historically, there's this battle between the sugar industry and the meat industry. The sugar industry is trying to blame everything on fat, and the meat industry is trying to blame everything on sugar. And it's like it's going back and forth. Historically, it's been going on for decades. And sometimes it seems like the sugar industry is winning. Of course, we don't know about it. But when you read the papers, you're like, oh, it was funded by the sugar industry. Makes sense. Fat is bad for you. But the meat industry is trying to say, no, sugar is bad for you. Each one of them is trying to make profits, obviously. Right now, it seems like the meat industry is more powerful and they're kind of winning. But this is only seasonal because it's not sustainable. Even if they're trying to say at least that it's not harmful, but it is. And the long-term studies show that people who follow low carbohydrate diets die sooner, and they have higher risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease. So it's not long-term sustainable, but in the meantime, they will make some profits, out of this controversy and out of these discussions. But it's our responsibility to, you know, get the best information possible and make the best dietary choices we can.
So my question is actually a follow-up to that, because I think the keto is popular because people lose weight fast on it, right? I mean, that's why they keep doing it. So why is it that on a keto diet, at least presumably, the weight loss, at least initially, seems much quicker than, say, on a plant-based diet?
In fact, the weight loss will be comparable on a keto diet and on a plant-based diet, depending on the calories that you're consuming. Sometimes people just get so excited. It doesn't matter if it's a paleo or a keto diet or a plant-based diet. Sometimes just people get so excited initially that they restrict their diets even more than what's required and requested. So on a keto diet, for example, if people don't eat rice, potatoes, and bread, sometimes they just don't even consume the foods that come usually with it. So they completely turn their diets upside down, and their caloric intake may be lower for some short period of time. But that's independent on the diet you go on. In fact, a plant-based diet is one of the most efficient diets for weight loss, and it's also long-term sustainable. While people on a keto diet are losing weight, we also expect all the cardiometabolic risk factors to go down. For example, blood lipids should be improving as you're losing weight. But about 1/3 of the study participants on a keto diet, their LDL and total cholesterol went up. So their cardiometabolic risk went up instead of going down with weight loss. In other words, you can also be losing weight and still worsen your outcomes and worsen your risk of cardiovascular disease. So it's super important to promote your health in general, not only the numbers and the weight. It's about the risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer and about your overall health. Legumes and beans intake. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. They are an excellent source of protein, and all the plant-powered athletes use beans as one of the main sources of protein. For example, Scott Jurek, when you are running ultra-marathon runs, for 200 miles or something, then you need to eat so much food in general. And of course, you want to be also careful about your protein. So one of his favorite foods for his runs are just burritos, bean and rice burritos. That's one of his main go-to meals when he runs. And also vegetables are a very good source of protein. When we think about our veggies, when you look at the greens, for example, you think about them, oh, greens are good for you because of the vitamins. But about half of the calories are coming from protein in vegetables. So let's say you didn't have anything else at your house, only green leafy vegetables. Well, you would eat a lot because they're not very filling, but you would still get enough protein. If you were able to eat so much volume to, keep you full, you would still get enough protein. So protein is not a major concern, and definitely legumes and beans are one of the best sources. They're very concentrated in protein, very good source of protein. Josh?
Could you just explain a little bit, like in India, where a lot of people are vegetarian, and yet there's still such high instances of legumes?
Yes, that's an excellent question. In fact, in India, the cutoff points for obesity are lower than in Western world. Because of the genetic component, they are more prone to develop obesity and diabetes. And it's mainly the fat that's used when cooking. They use a lot of coconut oil and a lot of other fats also while cooking. So a high fat vegetarian diet may not provide the same benefits as a low fat vegetarian diet. Also, when you have hard time losing weight on a plant-based diet, it's mostly the fat that you're using. If you keep the oil intake low, and if you are very reasonable with the nuts, limiting the intake to about one handful, then you will have no hard time losing weight. It's mostly the fat that will just keep you from losing weight, and you may be even gaining weight when switching to a plant-based diet. We need to be careful about the added oils, about the added fat, and also about the healthy sources of fat like nuts and avocados. Some people just eat a lot of them. So when we limit the amount, then it helps with body weight and risk of diabetes. Please.
One question that I read, that excess of carbohydrates are stored in the body as glycogen. What does the body do with the glycogen? Doesn't the glycogen become glucose, getting to glucose?
Yes, this is an excellent question. So when you eat a lot of carbohydrates, your body will store some of the extra carbohydrates in the form of glycogen, which is like a storage for glucose. And when you start exercising and when you're still fasting, for example, when you get up in the morning and you're fasting, let's say you go for a run or go for a walk, your body starts burning the glycogen as the main source of fuel to get the glucose. That's why higher glycogen stores in athletes give them advantage in terms of their performance. The more glycogen you're able to store, the better, because your body will be using the stored glucose as the source of energy. So it's one of the benefits of plant-based diets to increase the glycogen stores. If you don't use it, in fact, you use it almost every night. Your body, when you're sleeping, your body still needs to keep all the metabolic processes going. And when you're fasting, your body will start using the glycogen. And when you are running out of glycogen, then it will turn on and burn some fat. But it takes longer. Most people don't switch to the fat utilization, that often.
Just a question about that graph with the meat and the Parmesan cheese and the acid. Why is the Parmesan cheese and cheddar cheese even worse with acid than meat?
Yes, that's a great question because they are so concentrated. How do you produce cheese? So you have milk and you condense the milk, right? You basically get rid of all the water and you concentrate the protein and the fat. So it's because it's so concentrated. The cheese is so concentrated. And also during the production, the fat, the cholesterol is being oxidized. So that's more damaging. The oxidized cholesterol is the most damaging for your arteries. If you were hypothetically, so for example, a newborn baby, when it's being breastfed, the cholesterol in the mother's milk will not do any harm to the arteries because it's not oxidized. The baby is getting all the cholesterol straight. But when we process the animal foods, we oxidize them, and the oxidized cholesterol causes more damage. And right, that's correct. Yes, fresh is more than aged. And Parmesan is the most concentrated. You know that you are supposed to use just a very small amount of Parmesan compared to other cheeses. That's one of the reasons.
So, Hannah, do you have a personal story you can share with us of switching from a prior type diet to a plant-based diet and the impacts that you've experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. I switched to a plant-based diet when I was 14 years old, and it was a huge change. I had to start cooking for myself because my parents were not very supportive, and I learned a lot, during this transition time. But what kept me going was that I felt all the benefits. Although I was very healthy, I just wanted to keep my health, but I just felt so much energy. I felt I was taking my bike. My school was about 7 miles away from our home. So I was taking my bike every day in the morning and in the afternoon. And I felt how my performance improved on the bike. I was also a professional chess player. And I felt like my brain function improved as well. So all the benefits basically kept me going. And I can observe the same with our study participants. Many people, the main barrier to a plant-based diet is just to figure out in the beginning, what am I supposed to eat? I need to learn new recipes. But once you figure this out, once you start experiencing all the benefits, and in our study participants, most of them are on medications, blood pressure and blood lipids, and they are on multiple medications. Once they experience all the benefits and start dropping the medications, that keeps them going as well. It helps them stick to the diet. In other words, you can do only moderate changes to your diet, and you will see some moderate results, some moderate benefits. But most of the time, people just give up. They don't feel that the benefits are worth the sacrifice. While if you make bigger changes in your diet, if you do a completely plant-based diet, it may be more challenging in the beginning, but you will also feel so much better that it will help you stick to the diet in the long term.
How do you observe Thanksgiving and Christmas in terms of food?
Yes, that's a great question too. And this is something we help our study participants with every year. So we provide them with many healthy recipes. and we encourage them to make several dishes that they bring to their families, and let your family know beforehand. I'm following this diet for Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving is really about spending time with the family and friends. So we encourage all study participants to make some healthy dishes, and most of the stories are that their dishes disappeared as the first ones because people were so curious. And if you prepare the foods with love, you will also provide something special for your family. So even though it may seem challenging first, if you embrace it and if you put some work into it, then many of your family and friends might even be interested in your diet after all.
What I do is decline invitations. But I remember a couple of years ago talking to a nurse at Suburban Hospital who was working on Thanksgiving, and she was one of two teams of 3 or 4 people who were calling around to get enough medical personnel in to deal with the heart events. So when I have a chance to preach to people individually, I just kind of warn them, don't go to a big family feast and eat all day, because that can trigger something.
Yeah, that's definitely one approach, but at the same time, we're not living in isolation. We want to be a part of the social life, and one of the ways is just to provide healthy foods wherever we go, right? And people will know about the diet we're following, and more people might be interested. They may be ashamed to admit it initially, but if you are the first one, you might be surprised how many people will express that they would also like healthier options at these events.
You talked about low fat, but could you talk a little bit about the difference between the different kinds of fats? You mentioned coconut oil, and we hear sometimes about coconut oil is more beneficial. So can you talk a little bit about coconut olive oil?
Absolutely. So right now it seems like the best oil options. So generally speaking, you want to keep your oil intake low. Oil is already concentrated. It's just pressed down from natural foods. So the main fat intake should be coming from nuts and avocados and whole foods. You want to keep your oil intake low. The most beneficial ones that you can use in your kitchen are olive oil and avocado oil, but also rapeseed oil. Coconut oil has a lot of saturated fat. So when they compared coconut oil to butter, butter increased the blood lipids more than coconut fat, but coconut oil also increased the blood lipids. So it's better than butter, but butter is not really gold standard. Like, if you compare it to something like more harmful, to say that it's good for you is too much of an exaggeration. It's less harmful than butter, but it still increases your blood lipids, and you will gain some weight if you use too much of it anyway. So the more natural sources of fat, the better. And there are many healthy oils out there. Coconut oil seems to be like one of the least beneficial. Doesn't mean that you cannot consume it in, time to time or use it time to time.
A couple questions on that. One is, can you actually eat too little? And then the other thing is, I see so many friends who have read these books where they think fat is everything, it's good for your brain. They're adding coconut oil and butter to their coffee, which is just so disgusting. I also want to know, what was the impetus to start you off on a plant-based diet at 14?
Yeah, thank you. So can you eat too little fat? What do you think? So how will it look like if you eat too little fat? What would you eat? Rice, beans, vegetables. But you might be surprised, even in these foods, there are very low amounts of fat, but there's some. And what's amazing, so let's say you will only eat vegetables and rice and beans, no added oil, you will still meet the needs of your body, even with these super low amounts of fat. The amazing part is you get small amounts, but the quality is amazing. In all the leafy green vegetables, you have high ratios of omega 3s compared to omega 6. So you get an excellent quality of fat. Low amount, but sufficient and high quality. So you don't have to be concerned, but at the same time, I don't encourage you to do that. I would still encourage you to get some sources of fat, like nuts and avocados, that are beneficial for you. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. You don't have to. But at the same time, do you want to meet the minimum requirements? If you have access to nuts and avocados, is there any reason why not to eat them? Nuts and avocados have many metabolic benefits, but so do rice and beans and vegetables. And we don't probably have, at this point, we don't have enough information to say like what's the exact amount of nuts that you should be consuming. But it seems like a handful of nuts every day would probably about the amount that's optimal. But at the same time, you will not harm yourself if you don't have access to nuts and for any reason cannot consume them. The beans and the rice and the vegetables will still provide you with benefits. Okay, last question, Josh. Oh, why I became vegan right away at the age of 14. I was just observing the generation of my parents, and many friends of my parents were getting sick. They were getting cancer and cardiovascular disease, and I just didn't want to end up like that. I decided I would like to preserve my health. I perceived it as one of the most precious things in life. And then a health evangelist came to our town and had lectures on a healthy lifestyle. And I just decided to follow the advice and I became a vegan. And shortly after, I was also baptized in the church. So it was a true blessing for me, and I'm very excited to share it with others and also encourage others to improve their lifestyle. Yeah, they changed their lifestyle a lot. They didn't become completely vegan, but they changed their diet dramatically. Yes.